Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always delighted to have this wildly popular returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us for this weekly market update. Today is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Andy, thank you for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for having me, Dunnigan.
There has been a lot breaking loose in our world. You just don't know where to start politically, geopolitically, financially, monetarily, etc. One of the things we need to focus on here with our gang is the group of changes that are all coming at us at the same time, and this is relating to outflows, physical outflows like we may have never seen before from both the London Bullion Exchange, the COMEX in New York, and all kinds of cover stories perhaps that are being floated as far as why this is happening. But a lot of those don't hold water. It may be that something a lot bigger is going on. We've spoken with both Alistair McLeod, former bank director, as well as Gregor Mannarino, trading coach, and they both say they think that this is spelling the end of the ability of these exchanges to function in an orderly manner, given the amount of scramble for physical gold that is happening from the top of the food chain all the way down, while at the retail level, the ordinary moms and pops are fairly oblivious still, sleepwalking,
Barely. That's a nice way of saying it. Yeah.
fairly well anesthetized by the siren song of just, nothing to see here, folks, go back to sleep, while those at the top of the food chain are gobbling up the physical precious metals. We'll talk about the implications of that on ordinary people's opportunities later on, but right now we want to get your view because you study these things and you have a very deep pool of ways of connecting the dots and looking at intuitively at what's going on behind the scenes. So can you bring us into the inner circle of Andy Schectman thinking on what's going on this scramble for physical between London and New York and why people need to be aware of that so that they can make good decisions as the little man?
I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, my head hasn't stopped swimming about this for a couple of days. And I don't know, either I'm on something or I'm on to something. I don't know. I don't think I think the Trump tariff thing is a ruse, honestly. I think it's a scheme that he is using for other reasons. And if you'll indulge me, Dunnigan, once in a while on your show, I get on these rants, and it's hard for me not to rant about this in order to set the stage properly. And for those people who've heard me talk about this over the last 24 hours, well, this will be redundant because this is all I'm focusing on right now. And I think it's much bigger than people think. Look at the moves that he's been making that are shocking everyone, right? And rightfully so. So much of what he is doing is bringing back the ideals of this country, largely, meritocracy over lifestyle and all the things that I've ranted about as someone who's built success by outworking and doing it from nothing, from scratch. That the concept of lifestyle over merit bothered me, and these things are ingratiating him, and I think people are shocked at what they're seeing, and part of me feels like we haven't seen anything yet in terms of shock. So let's kind of set the stage just a little bit and work our way through it, and you tell me if you think these dots connect as well. On your show, for a very long time, since 2020, I have spoken with you about the tier one revision of gold. That's where it all started. Late 2019, we're talking gold being revised as tier one and the significance of that. Along the lines of tier one revision, we talked about the central banks that front ran that. Obviously, they were told by the BIS that gold will be revised. And 2017, starting with the Bundesbank, we had all the central banks repatriate their gold. The Bundesbank, Bank of Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank, the Bank of Austria. They all brought their gold back and then went on a buying spree, buying more gold in 2018 than they did combined in the 60 years previously. And then 2019, they doubled that amount. And then lo and behold, miraculously, gold was revalued. And it was revalued as the only other tier one asset in the world. And that's really the bottom line why the central banks have been buying it and repatriating it, is that it's on par with treasuries, but doesn't have the drawbacks of the treasury market, largely inflation risks, default risk, sanction risk, which have all proven to be wise decisions by the banks and the big central banks that have accumulated gold and shed U.S. Treasuries. And that's been going on for quite some time. We've talked about that. Now, I'm going to warn you, get out of there, little guy. I have a puppy that likes to pull on the cord of my monitor. Hopefully, I don't have to go grab her because I hear her back there. Anyways, so largely through all these years, through the stupidity of our suppression, the United States has been a net exporter of gold. The gold was leaving the COMEX, and so was the LBMA leaving. And we surmised, and it's funny when there was that huge amount of gold shipped out of the exchanges in 2024, I think might have been 23. The article from Bloomberg is like, yeah, well, 40% of it, we're not sure who bought it. Well, the same thing is happening here today. They say a lot of the gold that's flowing, the majority of it, they don't know who's buying it. And a lot of that is because these countries are buying through sovereign wealth funds, which don't need to be reported to the IMF the way that it would if the PBOC bought it, or the any of the central banks. They have an obligation to report it. And we've talked about how they've been sidestepping and skirting that by not reporting it. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake. Saudi Arabia and China. Articles say they've been buying 10 times the amount of gold than they report. And of course, we've talked a lot about the rise of the others. And I discovered that in 2020 with you, how the Commitment of Traders report that comes out of the COMEX, the publishing of the largest traders on the COMEX, has always been two-sided. One was the speculators or the hedge funds, and the other was the commercial specs. One goes long, one goes short. And we saw in 2020, all of a sudden, the COMEX published a third branch or third group of reportables called the others, sovereign wealth funds. And they've been slowly draining these exchanges. We've talked about that ad nauseum on your show. And so for the past several years, due to the stupidity of the previous administration, letting the metals continue to be suppressed, they had created a situation where the cupboards were being emptied in very creative ways. And we see the creativity where China goes directly to the miners and buys doré concentrate, so it's not recorded, and through sovereign wealth funds, or if the People's Liberation Army buys it, it's not reported. We haven't updated our gold holdings since, or audited it since 56. No one wants to tell anyone how much gold they're buying. But by and large, it was undisputable. The United States was a net exporter of gold. Something is changing at a level that I have never seen ever in 35 years of business, ever, never. And I think it's really important that we kind of dig into it and look at a bigger picture. Before I do that, let's remember what a few things that we've also talked about. We talked about Judy Shelton and her book. And I interviewed Judy, and she talked about her desire to make 50-year treasuries backed by gold. And that she said, Trump and I discussed it in 2016 as she was his nominee to run the Federal Reserve, although not confirmed, still was an advisor. And I suppose she'll probably end up being on the Federal Reserve Board during his administration, maybe even taking over for Powell. We'll see. But she said Andy Trump will issue most likely 50-year treasuries backed by gold on July 4th, 2026, the 250th year anniversary of the country. And of course, I asked her about auditing Fort Knox, and she said it should be done. The excuses that have been given are stupid. Where the United States spend a few $million, their question or their concerns over logistics are stupid. Let's get it done. It will inspire confidence. She said that. I said, Judy, do you know gold is held in an account called the Gold Revaluation Account? We've talked about this on your show a lot. That's the name of the account that all these central banks hold their gold in, the revaluation account. We've talked about how the head of the Dutch National Bank says, give us the ability to revalue gold to offset our liabilities. Members of the Bundesbank, give us the ability to revalue our gold to normalize our balance sheet, offset our liabilities. Cynthia Loomis, the senator from Wyoming, who advocates for revaluing gold in the gold revaluation account to pay for the strategic Bitcoin account. She said that in Tennessee. All of this should not be new news to everyone. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, just came out the other day and said, gold is my largest personal holding. We've talked about that. But what we haven't talked about is he said, I want to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet. He just said that yesterday or the day before. Now, what we have talked about on your show is the stupidity and the nausea that washes over someone when they look at the United States balance sheet. Our government has about 5 trillion in assets, the largest of which is student debt. We've talked about that. About 40% of the asset base of the United States is the debt of our children, which you can't even bankrupt yourself out of. A law was passed half a dozen years ago or so that says even if you file bankruptcy, they'll take your Social Security. So that's our largest asset. We can't monetize that. Well, next is military bases and planes and bullets. Can't really monetize that. Next is land. I suppose we could. But how about the gold held in the gold revaluation account? I asked Judy, do you think they'll revalue gold? She's not in so many words said yes. I do. I do think that they will. And others that I've asked that I've interviewed with or interviewed, and usually the question I ask, do you think it'll happen all at once or slowly? Most of the people say slowly, like we've been seeing up and up and up and up, which is gaining no attention by anyone mainstream whatsoever. Maybe we'll see. But let's now talk about what you're talking about. I want to lay the foundation. How many people know that since November, what happened in November? Oh yeah, it was the election, right? Since November, the United States has become a net importer of gold. Not since the inauguration, but since November. Are people in the know understanding what's coming? So since November, we've become a net importer of gold. JP Morgan is set to deliver $4 billion in gold to the COMEX for the February contract, one of the largest shipments ever. Now, who's got that kind of bread? Now, Blythe Masters used to run their trading desk, and there are videos out there of her saying JP Morgan does not buy for a house account, they buy for clients. What kind of clients got $4 billion to drop on gold? Could it be the Federal Reserve or the U.S. government? One of the largest shipments ever. Since November, 12.5 million ounces of gold and over 40 to 45 million ounces of silver have moved from the London vaults to the U.S. vaults because everyone is saying it's tariffs. To me, it appears that the Federal Reserve is accumulating physical gold and silver for a bigger reason, maybe part of a sovereign wealth fund strategy, maybe something bigger. Now, we talk about London and we look at London, and they are supposed to be T+1 settlement. They're now T+6 to 8 weeks. That's a default. Give me my gold in 1 day. No, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. What? What do you mean 6 to 8 weeks? It's T+1. Sorry, we're backed up. BS, they're backed up. Something's bigger happening right here in front of us. Get this. When you talk about signs of stress in the paper gold system, the February contract on COMEX has seen deliveries, stand for delivery, of 59,296 contracts. That is by far the largest delivery ever at COMEX. The previous record was in the middle of the QE to infinity nausea in June 2020. It was 47,132. This is 12,167 contracts more than the largest ever. That's 5,929,600 ounces. Try multiplying that times 2,900 and your calculator will go E. It's too big for your calculator to tell you what the number is. 2,747 silver contracts in February, or 427 tons, 13,735,000 ounces, all coming to New York because of the tariff threat. Or is it the tariff threat? Could it be a ruse, perhaps? Along those same lines, somewhere in the neighborhood of November, I always bitched about the fact that JP Morgan paid a $920 million fine for manipulating the metals market and somehow still got to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust, SLV, they and BlackRock, amongst other ETFs that they own in London and around the world, gold and silver ETFs. It was HSBC Bank that always controlled GLD. But guess somewhere in the last few months who just took control of GLD? Oh my goodness, it's none other than JP Morgan, the fox guarding the hen house. So you have JP Morgan and BlackRock now in custody of the largest silver trust in the world and one of the largest gold stockpiles in the world, amongst other ETFs. And what have I always said when people say, do you think gold will be confiscated? I said, no, I think they'll take the ETFs because we can't take possession of the ETFs. The commercial banks can. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. But instead, they could take all of that gold and silver, look the world in the face and say, look, we didn't default on anything. We didn't take gold from our citizens. It's not illegal to own it. Physical gold ownership is just fine. All we did is close the ETFs. The prospectus gives us the right to do that. No laws broken, no civil liberties infringed. Sorry. And they could do that like that. JP Morgan in two vaults, one in New York and one in London, now hold more gold than the majority of the G20 countries. Just like that. And it's the largest, pretty much largest silver stockpile in the world, or one of them, on top of what they already own. So let's just stop for a moment and reflect before I finish. So we have Scott Bessent saying we're going to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet. What assets other than land and gold? We have him saying it's his largest holding. We have Judy Shelton saying the only way this will ever work to maintain demand for the U.S. Treasury is to back it by gold. What is gold? But the only other tier one asset in the world. Who's been buying it and repatriating it? The central banks. Are they front running something? What did the BRICS say? Oh, Dilma Rousseff, the president, former president of Brazil, head of the new development bank. We've agreed in principle to a new settlement currency called the unit. 40% gold backed, 60% BRICS plus currencies traded over Enbridge. Now, there was a hiccup with Enbridge. We've talked about that. It's now called the bridge. They will continue moving forward. But the moral of the story is, what did Zoltan Pozar tell us? Used to run the New York Fed, understands the plumbing better than anyone of the system. He said it's Bretton Woods 3, a system that will be described by transparency, blockchain, and commodities, gold. So what did they say they were going to do? A settlement token pegged to gold, deliverable upon request, and 60% basket of currencies. So what did Judy Shelton say? We're going to issue 50-year treasuries and then issue stable coins. Hopefully the private market issues stable coins backing off the treasury. They said no CBDC, but they will start doing stable coins pegged to gold and pegged to the treasury market, third party like Ripple or like Tether, who are already loaded in U.S. treasuries. Almost entirely, their balance sheet is U.S. Treasury supporting the legacy system. They'll issue these too, not the government, the control of the central bank digital currency, but they will still control the on-ramp and the off-ramp. It's the same thing in a different hat, issued by a third party instead of by the government. It's genius. So she wants to issue 50-year treasuries backed by gold, says Trump will issue them in July 4th, 2026, and then stable coins come off of it. She said that they need to audit the gold. Maybe they'll even revalue the gold, just like Loomis said, and the Dutch National Bank and the Bundesbank held in the gold revaluation account, the only other tier one asset. But Trump says tariffs, so we got to bring all the gold and silver back to backfill all of these rehypothecated naked shorts. BS. I believe in my soul. I believe in my soul something bigger is in store for gold. I truly do. And all of that gold and silver is coming back to the United States. We are now a net importer because we realize the only way to inspire confidence and maybe front run the BRICS. You know, he's having meetings with Xi Jinping and Putin. Is he discussing this? Is he saying, let's just massively revalue gold? It will benefit you guys. It'll devalue the dollar. That's what he wants. It'll devalue the dollar against gold. Gold goes to the moon. Every $1,000 or $4,000 increase in the price of gold gives $1 trillion free and clear to the Treasury General account. Peg it to treasuries, re-inspire confidence, pay off some of the debt. Now, one last piece, you know, at the same time that our retail market is very slow, as you paid reference to, 16 tons of gold have recently exited GLD. And that's the talking heads would say, well, that's profit taking and people buying NVIDIA and Bitcoin and looking to the Trump euphoria and the risk on trade. No, it's not, folks. It's the insiders, the big commercial banks redeeming their shares for the physical gold before something happens. They're taking all the metal out of GLD in physical gold and moving it where? Into JP Morgan's account? Maybe. Don't know. It's share redemptions out the back door. It's not people selling. One last piece. When you talk about the potential for a silver squeeze, there is right now on SLV, where did I put that? On SLV, there is a 953 million ounce short position. Talk about as stupid as a mud wall. And you have to borrow shares to short it, right? The cost of borrowing SLV shares over the past couple of weeks have gone from 0.5% to 12%. Seems a little daunting, don't you think? And the number of shares over the past roughly 2 weeks that are available to borrow went from 10 million to 10,000. That's a 99.9% reduction. How do these short positions cover? You're talking a short squeeze potential of supreme proportions. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a little bit scary. So when you see these massive vault movements from London to New York, they're signaling a market event. And the physical silver and gold demand is accelerating with the biggest players in the world scrambling for direct ownership. And instead of T+1 in London, it's now T+6 to 8 weeks.
Mhm.
That's almost a default as far as I'm concerned. They can say whatever story they want about being backed up or having to refine 400 ounce into 100 ounce. You know what? Send us the 400 ounce. We'll refine it ourselves. Something is happening. And my guess, if I had to guess, is that Trump basically knows, his people know what we've been talking about all these years, that the idiots who have been suppressing the price of gold and silver and all of the commodities are playing right into the hands of the people who are trying to de-dollarize. And if you want to win, you need to bring it all home and beat them to the punch. And I'm telling you, all of these things coming together at once. So this is what I did with the bricks. And I said it out loud, and people thought I was crazy. Put all these dots together in and of themselves. Each one is kind of interesting and impressive. Put them all together and it's like, man, could it really be that it's the Fed or the Treasury that just bought that 4 billion in gold from JP Morgan and had it delivered to the COMEX? Could it be that the 12 million ounces that have come in have all been part of a bigger plan rather than just not over alerting the rest of the world to this is what we're going to do, but call it the Trump threat? I believe it is. And I will go on record as saying, I believe this is the beginning of something massive for the price of gold. And it's stupid of me to do that. I know that. I don't normally put any type of definitives on anything, but all I can tell you is that I've never seen anything even remotely close to this, not even by 100 yards, um, as to what we're seeing right now in real time. And then when you take a step back and look at what he's doing and uncovering and exposing, I don't know, man. It just seems to me like this is bigger than just the Trump tariffs, that this is signaling something that we should all pay really close attention to. And the greatest contrarian indicator of it all is that the people in this country are asleep at the switch, as the most well-funded and well-informed traders on the planet are moving in hyperdrive to not only accumulate it, but to bring it home, like the 40 banks that took it home from the Bank of England and the New York Fed. They're all repatriating and accumulating. And the paper scheme, which always has allowed the banks to manipulate because no one ever stood for delivery, it's now changing. And all of these countries, as I've said on your show, are motivated, coordinated, sophisticated, and we know what you're doing. And we'll stand for delivery. Thank you. So now I think Trump is doing the exact same thing. This is not about Trump tariffs. He will not put tariffs on silver. It is in a massive deficit in this country. 80% of the silver we need for industry, we import. He won't do it. Gold, maybe, or maybe it's just a threat so he can suck everything here before he says we're not going to do it, because now we own so much of it and we're going to revalue it because it's held in the revaluation account, and it is the only other tier one asset. And all the central bankers are calling for the same damn thing. And let's peg it to the treasuries to inspire confidence and issue stable coins off of it. Is that what's happening? If I had a gun to my head, Dunnigan, I would say yes, that is what is happening. So I'm going to go out on a limb for the second time in my career and say this ain't the Trump tariffs. This is something bigger, much, much bigger.
Well, what you're saying plays in very solidly with the well-established principle that don't listen to what they're saying, look at what they're doing. I mean,
Right.
there's even a study, there was a psychological study done several decades ago where there was how much of the interpretation of the validity of a statement was made by the words that the speaker gave. That was 7%. How about their tone of voice? That was high 30%. And everything else was their body language. And so you're watching the body language, and this has always been the true tip-off to situational awareness of that's what our, preparedness of our channel was the focus for the last 14 years, and that's been where it's coming from is the ability to see the movement while it's and you've talked about this always that the cover story that we're being told is usually just that. It's to deflect and redirect, as you've said in The Art of War by Sun Tzu. You don't let the the enemy know what you're doing because you appear strong where you're weak and appear weak where you're strong while and you've talked about the little man rule from your first day of economics class. And that's one of the things that's the most remarkable here as I deal on a daily basis with a flood of calls. Now my phone is melting during the day with clients calling, but when the premiums on retail investable silver and gold has been as low as we've seen them in the past, well, in ever. And yet you have the off-taking of physical by those at the top of the food chain as higher than we've ever seen, ever. It almost is that an inversion of the little man rule, or is it just that the little man still is? We have a very devoted following here who are taking prudent actions, but that 99% of people are not, and so the little man is oblivious to this.
Well, and I've said, you know, of that 99%, who we call the little man because they're not the big behemoths who know the inside scoop, many of them are very well read. They just read the wrong stuff. If they just expanded their, you know, their repertoire of information gathering, they may look at the world differently. And that's the problem. No one can get out of the way of what they never see coming. And you have everyone piled into a couple areas, 7 trillion in money markets, gazillions in 7 stocks, and the rest in crypto. I mean, you want to pull the rug, drop Bank of America, watch what happens to all 3 of those markets. Bang, just like that. And you saw what happened in the video when that other Chinese AI stock came out. It fell 20% in a day. Gold never does that, never has. And what are all the big banks doing? They're buying all of these assets, these commodities, and what is the public doing? They're buying shiny things. Gold was up 30% last year. No one notices it. It's at $3,000 knocking on the door and nobody notices it. If you would have told me that when most of my career, when gold was 400 or less, I said there's not a damn chance in hell that ever happens. People will be banging down our door to get it. Where is everybody? I don't get it. I don't. It's the largest, most significant, deepest contrarian indicator I've ever seen. And the big money is moving at a breakneck pace. But if you weren't listening to people like you and I, you'd never know it, ever. And who knows? How many people even know that gold's the only other tier 1 asset in the world? Nobody.
Yeah, that
And
was one
how
part. That was one part
significant?
of the story that you missed. I think it was a little nugget to insert there in the beginning. Is when did Ben Bernanke tell Ron Paul that gold was a barbarous relic, and people refer to it as a pet rock relative to that point in time when it became reclassified and the bank started front running that reclassification.
Yeah.
It was again the official statement basically always is the opposite of the
No,
reality that.
remember, he's also said the subprime crisis was contained, and a day or two later, the whole thing blew up. Look, if you don't question everything, even Trump's motivation, everything, you've learned nothing. After the last 4 years of being lied to incessantly on everything, we've been lied to. And that's not conspiratorial. It's not. It's fact. If you don't question everything, you've learned nothing. And I mean, I just think that things are not as they appear to be with this guy. He's shrewd as hell. And if he really is looking out for the country, truly, and he's not the Trojan horse as Francis Hunt said to me he was. I found it interesting. I may not completely agree with it. Maybe some of it I did, but then the first thing to do would be to stop the outflow of all of the gold and silver and the commodities eastward. And he wants a lower dollar, right? You let the price of gold spike, what happens to the value of dollar? It falls in relation to gold. But your gold holdings go way up. Your balance sheet looks better. Your exports might do better. It kind of serves his purpose. And if you were being honest with Xi Jinping and Putin, look, fellas, I don't want strife anymore, but you guys are buying all the gold. We're going to let it run. And that will benefit you. And let's find a way to coexist. You keep doing your things. You want to do your BRICS things, whatever, but let's do it in a manner that allows us to coexist. I don't know. See, I get to this point. I see all of these dots. And I said, there's something bigger is happening than they're saying, way bigger. It doesn't ever go like this. And then I go blank. Like, what's next? I don't know. I don't know how it all plays out. But I'll tell you, when she says there's 50-year treasuries coming pegged to gold and stable coins off of it, and she is right there next to him,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it. And the only way to do that would be to get as much gold back as you can, because who knows how much of it has been leased out anyway. Get it, and then revalue it. It's held in the revaluation account, and everyone's screaming revalue it. It's at 42.22 on our books, 35 on every other central bank in their revaluation account. And they're the ones that have been buying it. Wouldn't it behoove all the central banks to do that? Or what if they all knew that that was part of the script? Just like they all repatriated and front ran the purchasing in 2016, 17, and 18 and 19 before it was reclassified. What if the central banks know that this is the long game? If you look at Jan Nieuwenhuis, I think is the guy who's written about all of the accumulation of gold in the European Union as a percentage of GDP, gold to GDP on their balance sheet. And every single one has almost the exact same amount right now, like redistribution of gold. They all have the same amount. It's as if they're preparing for a gold revaluation to back a new system. What if they all, these central bankers, know the script? I mean, they are the most informed traders on the planet. It just seems like gold is the more things change, the more they stay the same, everything's coming full circle. Gold is going to be reinserted into a system that has lost all trust, to reignite that trust and find a marriage of blockchain technology, just like they said at the BRICS. Project Enbridge trading the unit, 40% gold back. 40% is what the Swiss used to have, by the way. Their currency was back 40%. 40% gold backing is the number a lot of economists say would be perfect. Well, there you go. You can just see that these things in and of themselves are significant. Put them together and it's like, man, it sure looks like something bigger is on the horizon. And what better guy to do it than Trump, who is blowing up the house? And this would be something that has to be done. First, you come in and you reunite the country under our ideals. Even some of the Democrats are blown away by the changes and the fraud and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about the idiots like Cory Booker who scream about Doge trying to get this government from being wasteful and borderline criminal. Get it in order. But I'm talking average people who are more left leaning say, man, he's really doing something. And then you have Doge say, look, we've tried to do all we can, but without completely slashing Social Security and Medicare, we have to do something different. We all need to tighten our bootstraps. And here's what we're going to do. If we reset the system somehow, some way, what better guy to do it than the guy that is the master of reorganization and bankruptcy? When of the $200 trillion that we owe, only about $8 trillion is owed to the rest of the world. The majority is owed to the American people in all of the money markets loaded with treasuries, in all of the people chasing yield loaded with treasuries, in the insurance companies and the pension funds. And we're the ones that have been buying all the treasuries as they've been selling it, and Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and all the pensions are all owed to us. So if you do something to reset the system, peg it to whatever you're doing, I don't know how it all plays out. That's where I go blank. But I mean, it's all owed to us. So if you're going to do it and say, look, our children that will now have a world that they can look forward to growing older in, and opportunity is coming back, we have to pay the price for the indiscretions of fiscal irresponsibility and fraud, really, to the American people and to the rest of the world. It has to be paid back somehow. And revaluing gold would be a much more benign way than outright hyperinflation or outright default. And I'm telling you, I swear in my soul, I feel this is where we're going.
I wanted to let everyone here know, and please let all of those whom you know that Judy Shelton is coming to Liberty and Finance 2 weeks from now. We'll have her here, and we will follow up on those questions that Andy broke open with her, and we'll get your questions in front of her as well. So watch for our call for questions.
Way to
for
go.
Judy
That's a
Shelton.
good one.
And thanks for helping to help make that connection.
Absolutely.
Also wanted to plug in also to your sequence of perhaps Trump knows more than what people think he does about what he's doing because of his statements about Greenland. And everyone here may or may not know that Greenland is a source of many strategic materials that otherwise the U.S. doesn't have easy access to, that China has tied up elsewhere around the world. You might want to knit that into your sequence of dots there too, as far as demonstrating his very, very recent and present interest in making a major, I think nobody saw that one coming, move that would be kind of shifting the tectonic plates in terms of access to strategic materials. If you
Well,
consider
look, Indonesia just became a formal member of BRICS. They have the largest in-ground deposit of nickel in the world, and their president Widodo has called for a OPEC-style cartel of rare earths. So yeah, I mean, he is being strategic in that respect, and I do think he is more shrewd, and I think that he wants to now, after everything they've done to him, the part of me believes that he wants to expose the fraud and wants to show everyone how bad it is. And I think he wants to get us back. He's got kids and grandkids. The guy's a human being, man. And he wants his kids to grow up in a world that, where you don't have to know Mandarin in order to get along. And in a world where there's opportunity that we all found when we were young, Dunnigan, and I hope that he does. But I still think that it will come at a price, and that price is going to be of much higher inflation. You devalue the dollar in relation to gold, the dollar becomes much weaker, things become much more expensive. Saving in dollars is not a good idea. All of those things we'll have to deal with, but it's probably the least painful option. And I think it will be met with enthusiasm if people really see that he's trying to make this country great again. And I'm not trying to be trite. I mean, we're so far astray over the last 4 years. I mean, half the people I talk to every day said, if she won, I'm leaving the country. And, hopefully we're on the right path. I want to shift gears for a moment, just for a second, before I take questions, and say, I've been doing this for 35 years. And the first half of my career with gold under $400, nobody bought gold bullion. Nobody. A gold eagle at 6% over $400 spot is 4.25. A $20 gold piece in MS-63 back then would have been 450. Nobody bought gold bullion. And that was the case until 2007. In late 2007, it became preordained that Obama was going to win, and the perception of confiscation was huge. I'll never forget, I was driving home from a boys' weekend, a golf weekend. I get a call from our trader, and he says, Andy, you won't believe what's going on in the numismatic market. Overnight, premiums have gone parabolic. And I will buy back 62 grade St. Gaudens for a $600 or $700 premium, 63s for $700 or $800 premium, 64s for more. My business in the beginning was Swiss annuities, the very beginning. And when the Swiss didn't join the European Union, I had maybe the best call in my career. I said, they're going to peg their currency to the euro. They have to do that because they're an export nation. If they don't, no one is going to buy watches and chocolate from a country that they first have to convert to a high price franc. They'll destroy their economy. And indeed they did. I told everyone, sell your Swiss annuities, come back into gold. And millions and millions and millions did. In 2001, it kind of put me on the map. And they were all buying numismatics at $400 or $500 a piece. So we get to 1,000 and just barely over the price of gold eagles. And we get to 2007, late 2008, and with $1,000 gold, I became Diamond Elite on Delta. I called every one of those clients and I said, you're letting me come to your house, and I'm going to, for your 1,062s and threes, I'm going to bring you 1,800 gold eagles. And I swapped everyone out in numismatics. There were 3 or 4 auction galleries like Stax and Heritage bidding these huge premiums. And I said, you got to switch to bullion. And it was an anomaly, like all the anomalies that I talk about. All the successful trades I've ever had center around identification and exploitation of anomalies in price. And it was the best call I ever made. These people made out way better than they ever would have. What I see right now, I've never seen in 35 years. I am sitting on thousands of ounces, thousands of numismatic coins in stock, 10s and 20s, part of a large buyback I did. And as an example, people could trade gold eagles right now, straight up, for 63 St. Gaudens at no cost, 1 for 1. When I tell you I've never seen anything remotely close to that in 35 years, never. Coins like this right here, you can see that. I don't know if it's too much of a glare, but the $20 gold piece, I've never seen it. in ever. And you've never really heard me talking about certified numismatic coins on this show or any. We've talked about circulated coins before, and because it's always been about value in a world that had gone mad and haywire. And it's not about collectability, it's about ounces of gold. But I will tell you, from a contrarian standpoint, from a standpoint of price anomaly of the past 3.5 decades, the best value I have ever seen in $20 gold pieces, $10 gold pieces, certified, even circulated AU, BU, XF, all the way up to uncirculated. It is the most undervalued, best opportunity, honest to God, I have ever seen in 35 years. And you can trade your Buffaloes and Eagles straight up for 62 libs, 63 cents, 64 cents. You may have to pay just a tiny bit. I've never seen it like this. Never. So when we go over the specials tonight, I don't know if we have them, but let me just say this for any people out there that want numismatics. You can call Liberty and Finance. If you're one of my clients, call me or my brokers. If you work with us, we're all one team. And understand that we probably have what you're looking for times 100. And I will tell you, if you're buying gold in my career, and I don't say this often, I have never seen a better value in gold ever. Never, never. There is zero opportunity cost, zero in buying pre 33 gold right now. And if you buy it from a company like ours who will treat you right, you'll pay less per ounce primarily than you would for a 2025 Gold Eagle. Way less. And that's never happened by a country mile. So I wanted to say that because it's significant. And it's part and parcel with the idiocy of this American public who is just once again missing the ball completely and being misdirected into the wrong place. And the overhang. And one last piece that I want to address. Part of the reason that there's such a massive overhang in supply and low premiums, aside from the Trump euphoria and the Trump and a lot of, I get that, right? The culture part. I say that over and over again. It's justified, but they're missing out on the monetary side. And so you have all the people that are buying Bitcoin and Nvidia and the risk on trade and Apple. You also have some people selling to do that. A good number over the last few months did sell right after he was elected. But you also have the 2025 allocations that come out. And a company like mine has to spend $25, $50 million buying all of the 1 ounce, half ounce, quarter ounce, 10th ounce, American Eagles, the Buffaloes, the Silver Eagles, the same thing for the Canadian Mint, the same thing for the Austrian Mint, the same thing for the Australian Mint, the same thing for UK and South Africa, and all of the rounds from the refiners. If you don't oblige and take the distributions each year at the beginning of the year, you fall into obscurity and you're not at the top of their list and you're not going to get product when everyone else is running out. And I always have, like during the pandemic. And I honor my word with these people, and we go deep into our lines of credit if we need to have current year issue. At the same time, for example, you can buy a Gold Eagle, which we had on special last week. I think it was on special at $75 over spot. The brand new Gold Eagle 2025, the distributors have to pay over 3% to get them from the mint. They're paying more from the mint than I'm selling you a 2023 or 4 Gold Eagle for. I've never seen this stuff. At the same time, there's this scramble for bars coming off of COMEX and the LBMA. Mm-hmm. Do you see a contrarian indicator here? Do you see misdirection here? Do you see what's happening? And if you don't, you'll never get it. This is as good of opportunity I have ever seen in 35 years, and I'm on record saying that.
Yeah, I wanted to underscore that because, for example, I mentioned my phone was melting today. My last 2 orders that I took from a client today were swapping modern bullion, gold, either Gold Eagles or Gold Britannias or Gold Maples for the MS62, et cetera, pre-33s. And we've never had anything close before. It's never been at all. And in fact, he's going to get cash back as part of that. So anyway.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And I just wanted to get that out there. So now I'm happy to take any questions and fire away, brother.
Well, we have questions that were asked by several viewers. I wanted to get to those. One moment, and hold on. One of the questions that's been asked is, on, you've mentioned a lot about gold and silver here because we're specifically talking about monetary phenomena. What is your view of where platinum falls in this discussion?
From every metric, it's a good value. It's third in line to me. The U.S. Mint, to my knowledge, hasn't made platinum eagles this year. Last year, they only made about 35,000 of them. They're hard to get. Uh, I had two very large orders from the same client beginning of the year, 500 ounces each one, and I called my operations and they said it's a good thing you're doing this now. The allocate This is like January 2nd, 3rd, 4th. The allocations are coming out now. If you don't get them, you won't get any because the mints aren't making it. And it's hard to come by. They have high spreads. It doesn't have the same historical perspective of being wealth or safety in craziness. I mean, when you look at its value in relation to gold, it's a home run. The logic says yes. I don't think the world looks at it the same way they do gold and silver. It would represent a distant third behind gold and silver to me in terms of priority. But the value is there. I understand why they'd ask the question.
Any comments from you on the impact on our relationship with BRICS nations? You alluded to that when you said that if Trump uh, he put out this thing talking about threatening those countries which were going to come up with a settlement currency outside the dollar, being subject to sanctions, et cetera. But then now you're saying if he does the gold revaluation approach, that would benefit all parties. Any further comments from you on that aspect?
I think he'd be wise to do it because the stick sometimes is the wrong thing to do. Maybe the carrot's better. By him saying we're going to put 100% tariffs on you guys, that's not a tariff. That's a sanction masquerading as a tariff. And that's the exact reason all these countries have joined together. And, you know, they're being quiet right now, as they should, after what the BIS did to them, which is a Western institution. They're not going to be as open as they have been and willing to join the Western system. I think indeed they will continue to de-dollarize, to trade in local currencies, to settle in gold. This is a trend that's not stopping. And when you see Indonesia join as a full member, you can see that. And there's 20 plus 26 or 7 that have formally applied. We don't know who they are yet fully. They're keeping things closer to the vest, but I don't think he will go down easy. You know, I think he'll make it tough on the countries to a degree, but I don't think that they will stop um, their desire to stand on their own 2 feet and have a trading block of countries that are not reliant on the dollar or the U.S. Treasury market. And that's part of the reason I think you're seeing this rethinking of the game and gold being part of that thought process.
Question here from Vintage Joe. Just wondering if playing the gold silver ratio is still a good idea.
History would say it is. It could be, look, if gold truly does take part in a monetary renaissance that way, it may be distorted, but I can't imagine gold going way, way higher and silver not at least coming along for the ride, simply out of the fact that it's the poor man's gold and gold will be too expensive and hard to come by. But in my mind, gold is becoming strategic far more than industrial. And you're seeing a lot of silver. Silver is not gold. You're seeing a lot of silver come home here too in the repatriation. He will not put tariffs on silver. I believe he will not. It's too hard. It's too much in deficit. It would kill the industrial side of things. But history says silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet. It's the most asymmetrical thing I've ever seen, where the risk is so far lower than the reward potential that I still think it's in play and maybe even in spades. So just may not happen the way that we think. I think gold could run hard and then silver will slingshot to catch up, but may not play out the way we exactly think. But I think, yeah, absolutely, I would still hang on to that, and with anticipation of indeed capitalizing on what truly is the very fact it's coming out of the ground at 7-1, and you have the Western suppression, which seems to be breaking. You have this position on SLV, the naked shorts that are scrambling. You have on the LBMA, 300 million ounce float that's trading 2.9 billion ounces per day. That doesn't work. That math doesn't work because those are all contracts that should stand for delivery. And if you see a rush to stand for delivery and what amounts to defaulting, it'll only exacerbate and accelerate the final outcome. And just the geological ratio between the two should come into focus. So yeah, I mean, even if gold goes to the moon, silver will find a way to catch up.
We have several questions, both here and from clients this week about Morgan and peace dollars, silver dollars, in other words. We've talked often with you here about the usefulness, the utility of junk silver that is pre-1965 dimes, quarters, and half dollars is what we've mostly talked about. And we haven't usually talked about silver dollars. There's a strange phenomenon about pricing on silver dollars is that they are completely out of line with the pricing that are available on the dimes, quarters, and half dollars. Those typically, we got a $1.49 over spot on dimes and quarters. We got a $1.69 over spot on half dollars. But the Morgan, like the silver dollars, those things are sometimes up to 50% premiums above spot on those. What is it in your view that drives the high premiums on silver dollars? And do you see that just as an affectionate people just like them, they're beautiful, they're historic, that sort of thing? Or do you see any particular what are your general view of the value proposition of silver dollars and
Well, I mean,
specific?
look at first of all, junk silver dimes and quarters. I mean, if we take mercury dimes and out, which were made in like the early 1900s, or even put them in, they're in junk bags too, early 1900s to 1964. So you're talking 60 years or 50 plus years of gazillions of dimes and quarters that were made, right?
Mhm.
And half dollars and all the different varieties, the Barber and the Walking and the whatever, the Roosevelt and the Washington, all of the different quarters and dimes over the years. There's just gazillion. The Morgan dollar started to be made in the late 1870s. I want to say like 79, maybe something like that, through 1904. They stopped making silver dollars in 1904, largely, I suppose, for the war effort. They did not make any again until 1921. So you got there the 30 years or so or 25 years or less, 20 plus years, 22 or 3 of Morgan dollars, and then nothing. And then they started up again in 1921. They made the Morgan for half a year. It made the peace from 21 to 36, and that was it. So the peace dollar they only made for 15 years and total in the Morgan 20-ish. So 35 years total on the silver dollars made in much less quantities because a dollar back then was a hell of a lot of money. A dozen eggs was 5 cents or whatever. And so the dimes and the quarters and everything that have been used throughout all of the years, they made way more than they did the silver dollars. I'll tell you how I feel about silver dollars. When I moved from Minnesota to this neighborhood, it's a golf community, didn't know anybody. I quickly got into the golf games. And on Friday and Saturday, 40 guys. And every week you split up. The clubhouse will split you up into pairs and foursomes, and there's betting, and it's great. I started to meet people. And every single guy that I met, new person, I'd give him a Morgan silver dollar as a ball marker. And it now everyone has Morgan silver dollars. Uh, it's my favorite silver coin, period. I think there's nothing cooler than a Morgan silver dollar, but they are much more scarce than the pre 65, uh, excuse me, the pre 65 junk silver. You can buy uncirculated Morgans all the way up into 64, 5, 6, 67 grade that are in PCGS and NGC holders that are amazing. In fact, you have some of those in the picture that you have behind your desk very often, and that frame piece that we gave you. And those Morgan silver dollars, to me, if I could own one silver coin and one gold coin, it would probably be a Morgan silver dollar and either a $20 Liberty or a $20 Cinco. And to me, they are Americana, they are history, they are wealth, they have mystique. They're amazing, but they're not the most affordable way to own it. So those premiums really haven't come down commensurate the way that others have. And I guess it's a sign of its scarcity. When Buddy Bunyan, I think his name Binion, Buddy Binion, the guy that owned Binions, when he died, they dug up in his property and they found he left like a treasure map and they found millions of Morgan silver dollars that he had taken out of his casinos and saved in Morgan silver dollars. To me, there's no cooler way to own silver than in the Morgan.
I wanted to you a chance to go through briefly the specials we have. I'm going to pop them up. I think they're very familiar to everyone because, uh, let's see, I'm going to share. Sorry. Woohoo. One moment.
Well, and that's why I wanted to talk about the numismatics, which I we haven't been real good at specialing them yet. We're still kind of figuring everything out with what we have, which is a lot of it.
Hmm.
So
One
those
thing
are cheap. I mean, that's cheap. That's what they were sold for my whole career, 285 over.
for those who are listening on a podcast rather than watching, if you could state what the product is.
Oh, 1 ounce silver Philharmonic at 285 over. That has been mint cost forever. I mean, that's what I would have sold them for long before any of this craziness ever happened, with silver much lower than it is now. That's a great price for a sovereign mint coin that has no queen on it. And if I had or king, if I had a dollar for every time someone said to me, well, I just don't want a coin with the queen on it or the king. That is the front and back. That's the orchestra or the organ at the orchestra, and those are obviously the instruments. They're beautiful, and they're also might be the only silver coin that I can think of that isn't ridged on the side. It's smooth. It's a really unique, beautiful, wonderful coin. Maybe the most sought after in Western Europe. So like it a lot.
I'm going to skip to the dimes and quarters and the half dollars.
Yep, bags of junk silver, the best value, period, in silver is the pre-65. I mean, there's nothing that's a better value. And these were trading double-digit premiums for the whole pandemic, 11, 12, 13, 14 over, and being bought back for real close to that. So
I, I realize
again,
this picture is out of date. The $1.69 over spot is now for halves. You've offered them at this price, 169. You've even added additional discount of 149
dollar
dimes and
49,
quarters.
yeah, on the dimes and quarters. There is no better buy in silver than that, in my opinion.
And then jumping over to this is what you were spent quite a bit of time talking about that people have. And I also noticed an additional value step that you opened up this week is that started with a $20 St. Gaudens coin, but now the $20 Liberties can be had for the similar price.
It is. And if people want certified, we have a lot of them in stock, and the price increase is not substantial. But yes, we're starting slowly to release them in this manner. So the AU means almost uncirculated. That was in someone's pocket 100 years ago. That it tells a story if you put it to your ear. And that's what I mean about the mystique. This is, I mean, it's Americana, man. It's Coca-Cola. It's putting a coin in your hand that was in someone's pocket in San Francisco or in New York City or wherever the hell it was 100 plus years ago, and it's retained its value commensurate. Where that $20 gold coin back then in 1900 would have bought you a suit, a sport coat, a shoes, tie, the whole 9 yards. And now 20 bucks won't even buy you a tie, but that ounce of gold that's in that coin at 2,800 bucks will buy you one hell of a nice suit. So that's what gold does throughout time, is retain its value against your lifestyle and the things that you buy.
And these quickly, just in touching that you still have some of the 10th ounce Gold Britannias.
Yeah,
And
that's the boring stuff, but we have it. And these are the things that this is part of the reason there's such an overhang. So we got all this stuff and then got to buy the 2025s too. So I like the Britannias at 29.99 over. That's dirt cheap. I like the American Eagles best for the 10th ounce, but hey, I mean, from a standpoint of craftsmanship and the way these coins look, they're some of the most beautiful coins I've ever seen. And from a standpoint of barterability, having 1/10 ounce coins in my mind a prerequisite. I don't like the Valcambi Combi bars that you can break off little pieces and get a gram. You hold one of those little gram pieces in your hand, it doesn't even feel real. And it's as thin as a baseball card. From a standpoint of gold bartering, the 1/10 ounce coin is the best, whether you get the Britannia or the Maple or the Philharmonic or whatever. To me, my favorite is the Eagle, but these are really good too.
And finally, the backdated 1 ounce gold maples. These are the 4.9s fine. Just clarifying that Canada, way back in the beginning, made them 3.9s fine, but these are the more recent years of 4.9s fine.
Yeah, and Canada is also, ironically, the only mint that I know of that makes 5.9 fine coins too. We have them from time to time. They used to make a lot. They used to make every year the Call of the Wild series with their 5.9s. But yeah, 4.9 fine mean it's the purest. It's 24 karat. I don't even know how to explain what 5.9 fine is, but just to make a since we're on the subject, just to make a clarification, a lot of people say, well, why would I want the gold eagle if it's 22 karat? Isn't a maple leaf better? It's not, because the 1 ounce American Eagle has 1 ounce of pure 4.9 fine gold in it, plus a tenth of an ounce sprinkled of silver and a little bit of copper alloy on top of it, which decreases the purity to 22 karat, increases the net weight to 1.1 ounce. So if we played poker, high stakes, with a pile of gold eagles and a pile of gold maple leafs, at the end of the night, the maples would look 100 years old. That's why, like in the old cowboy movies, they would take a piece of gold and bite it, the softness, you'd see your tooth imprint. Same thing is true here with these coins. They're very pure. They lend themselves to scratches and abrasions. You have to hold them nicely and by the rims and that kind of stuff. It's one of the allures in my mind to the gold eagle because of its 22 karat. It's stronger, more resilient. And we had those on special recently at 75 over, and for 26 bucks or six, what is that? 16, what is it? 66, 16 bucks, right? 19 bucks, whatever. Six.
Yeah.
It's been a long day, man. I've done 5 podcasts. 75 bucks over an eagle, I'd rather get again over the maple. But I'll tell you, this is what gold bars usually sell for. These are usually 30, 40 bucks higher. Everything is on sale at the same time. The biggest money in the world is scrambling. Do you not see something is amiss here? I would suspect that there will be a scramble to get product on this side of the ledger at some point too. And what is, I've been screaming for months now about that. And at some point, it will be proven, true. But right now, it's still a buyer's market.
Well, Andy, we're grateful always
Don't
for your
go done
presence here.
again.
We've reached the top of the hour, and we're grateful
I need
for
a
you.
friend, man. That's all good. We're all
Well,
good, my brother. It's
we
always
missed
good to
we,
be
we
here,
missed you last week. We're looking forward to being with you again next week, and our viewers are always eager for your return visits here because we practically build our week around this weekly market update on Wednesday night. So thank you for
Well,
making
I'm
that.
thrilled to have actually had something new and exciting to talk about. I apologize for being redundant, but to me, the redundancy centers around the things that I find to be crucially important, and everything else is just noise. And it's the big picture, if you will. And what I see now is a picture much bigger than anything I've ever seen. So we will see, right? It's now in stone. We'll see if I'm right, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I could be, but I don't know. It just feels much bigger than just Trump's tariffs. And anyways, till next week, my friend. I look forward to picking up where we left off. I wish you and everyone else a good evening.
Thank you to Andy and everyone. If you don't want to miss a single episode with Andy, thank you all for being here, by the way. Over 1,000 viewers here. If you don't want to miss a single episode with Andy or any of our guests, make sure you're on our free mailing list at libertyandfinance.com. It's all free. We don't share your email address with anyone, but you will get every announcement of every one of our guests, including Andy, so you won't miss a single thing. And all the weekly specials every week. One email in your inbox per day. We won't spam you. Andy, thanks for joining us here again on Liberty and Finance.
See you soon.